Welcome back to another episode of the Innovate on Purpose podcast, hosted by Matt Mueller,
best-selling author of The Mindful Innovator and Rethink Retail's top retail expert.
We help retail leaders find clarity so they can grow their businesses purposefully.
We will uncover mindful tips, innovative solutions, and purposeful leadership advice and strategies that you can apply immediately to your retail innovation. Are you ready to innovate on purpose?
Hey, before we jump into the episode today, I just wanted to say thank you for hitting the play button. You being here fires me up, and I cannot wait to share with you the insights that are going to make a difference in your business. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and leave a review so I can reach as many retail leaders as possible. They too need to hear this. Okay, let's do it. Hello and welcome to Innovate on Purpose, brought to you by The Mindful Innovator. We are in our second season here on this podcast, and this season is definitely getting more into the weeds on the innovation space within retail and CPG. And today we are doing a deep dive into CPG. We have a very, very special guest, Sallie Jian, joining us today from Diageo Ventures, who is the director and head of North America at Diageo Ventures. She helps investing in innovation brands that balance current business strategies with forward-thinking initiatives. Sallie, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Matt. Good to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you again. I think it was about a month ago. We were just in New York City at the Lead Summit. It was great to just talk to you there and to talk about innovation in the pipeline and making sure that we are beating the competition and meeting consumer needs. And I'm glad that we get to continue the conversation right here on the podcast.
Yeah, definitely.
So can you just tell the audience here just a little bit more about you, your background, and what we have in store for today?
Sure. Yes. So as you mentioned, I am with Diageo. Diageo is one of the largest spirits makers in the world. We have over about 200 brands, many of them that you might be familiar with, such as Casamigos, Don Julio, Guinness, Johnny Walker, Smirnoff, Kettle, Tanqueray, many, many others. And I sit on our venture capital team within Diageo, which means I get to invest into new brands, early stage brands that we find very promising and have an opportunity for Diageo to partner long-term with. Some of them potentially may even become acquired and part of our core portfolio one day. My background before I joined Diageo, been in venture capital for about a decade. So I was at SAP previous to Diageo, also corporate ventures. And then prior to that was in more traditional VC. And then I've also, in the early parts of my career, started out in traditional finance, investment banking, growth equity, and then spent some time at startups myself before moving into venture capital.
Awesome. I mean, the pedigree that you have in all those different areas between the finance, the venture capital, and now bringing all that experience into the CPG space is extremely important. And I'm really curious to learn more about exactly how Diageo is approaching innovation, because it's very different than some other brands. Like the brand that I came from, the way that I worked on innovation was that it was all in-house. We looked at consumer insights, said, okay, what is the competition doing and what trends do we need to meet? And then go out and do the work, which is, definitely one way to do it. It was very closed off and just internally, this is how we're running forward as an innovation team. But it seems like Diageo has taken a very different approach. Can you tell us a little bit about what that approach is exactly like at Diageo and some of those benefits?
Yeah, and what you described is also a part of how we look to invest. We work with our innovation teams internally and our consumer insights internally. We look at macro trends that are just happening across the board, whether it's trends in sales of products, in consumption, in consumer behavior, in social media, even in what's popping online. And we glean all of these insights, whether we're getting them from our colleagues, our counterparts, or externally to really make informed decisions on what we invest in. So I think we take a very collaborative, very holistic view when it comes to, digesting a lot of data and insights, very data driven, and to making the decisions that we do when it comes to actually investing and finding the right startups out there, because there are a lot of companies out there, and it's getting easier and easier to start a startup, to start a brand, to start a ready to drink, to start a CPG product. And so we really need to take a look at both qualitatively and quantitatively what makes a brand really unique before we invest.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's like when you're thinking about like those brands that you are investing in, like what are some like those factors that are really coming into play when trying to think about like who should we be working with?
Yeah. And so as a corporate venture capital arm of Diageo, we are very strategic. There's sort of different flavors of corporate ventures. Some are more strategic focused, some are more financially driven. I would say that we are more strategically driven and align with what our parent company is looking for. And so a lot of what we do is understand, what is already in the Diageo portfolio, what is coming into the innovation pipeline, and what we should invest in to really complement and amplify the internal workings and developments of Diageo to drive inorganic growth with different startups that we're investing in. So, a partner called Distill Ventures that we work closely with. They're independent of Diageo, but they work exclusively with Diageo Ventures, my team, and they help Diageo Ventures team end to end with our investment and our investment activities. So they have a website that I encourage anyone listening to check out, just distillventures.com. You can see some of the companies we've invested in through Distill Ventures, our investment strategy, also contact information for getting in touch with a team if you're interested in getting in touch with them or Diageo Ventures. That's a good first step to get your foot in the door. But we have invested in a lot of products that do mirror what you would imagine or what you do see at Diageo. So we have invested in whiskeys, we invested in tequilas, we invested in aperitifs, non-alc beverages that replace alcohol occasions. Those have been some big areas of focus for us in the last several years. And that could be, we continue to look at those categories. And then there are some other categories that as things evolve, we'll also invest in and take a look at and opportunities that will help us push the needle beyond just to create growth in this category and for our company.
Yeah. Before you actually kind of ended up on that statement there, talking about investing in non-alc, I was going to ask the question, like, okay, so what are some of the Diageo strategies that you're really focused in on elevating and putting into that pipeline? Sounds like that's probably one of the big ones, right? Is the non-alc space, because it has been growing like crazy the last, 5 years or so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely one of the hyper growth type of categories, specifically in beverage. And we are looking at products that, they may have low alc or non-alc, but they also still share a lot of the same resources and distribution, sales and marketing functions that, Diageo already has. So we're not looking to invest in like traditional soft drinks, like tea or energy drink. We're looking at products that people will drink instead of an alcoholic drink at the bar, the restaurant, and where they go out or when they're purchasing in other outlets. That's because it's very similar to what we already have. And it's with the trends around like millennials and Gen Zs abstaining, drinking less, as we know, which is a big trend these days. Maybe they're finding some other ways to celebrate this is an area where we really feel Diageo can win in, and is very complementary and makes a ton of sense for us. And so we actually invested early on in one of the earliest players in non-alc spirits, which is called Seedlip. You may have heard of Seedlip. And so we really kind of, with that investment, when they were seed stage, and then we helped with the resources of Distill Ventures and Diageo, help the brand grow into a place that Diageo eventually acquired them. And now they're like a very mainstream global non-alc spirits brand that you can find anywhere. And they're very popular on the menu at bars and restaurants. They're kind of one of the first. So with that investment, we helped kind of launch this kind of category, and then have in the past years continue to propel the category with additional investments in non-alc.
Awesome. So like with Seedlip, like, can you take us back a little bit on that and say, so like, how did that relationship like begin? Like, did it start with an insight saying, oh man, we need to do something about this space? And then you started looking for players. Did they approach you? What did that look like in the beginning?
Yeah, there's various ways that these type of investments get in front of us. As a brand in this category, in the alcohol or non-alc spirits category, if you're looking to raise capital, you'll probably want to approach a strategic like Diageo. And so our team has been around for over a decade. And so we are definitely go-tos. If you're in this category, you're looking to raise capital and you want strategic help, and you think, Diageo could be like a good long-term partner for that. So there's a lot of opportunities that just come to us inbound through referrals, through introductions, that way. And we do have a lot of relationships. A lot of brands will be introduced to us through what I call warm introductions. And that's a really great way to get in front of our team, because it's what that typically means is it's someone who knows someone from my team and also knows the founders, and is able to facilitate a very relational introduction. And so that's kind of one of the best opportunities or ways to get in front of us. We also do a lot of sourcing ourselves, and like you and I met at a conference. So myself, my team, my colleagues, our partners, we are also pretty visible at trade shows and the panels, whatnot, where we have a lot of opportunity to meet companies in person in the field, because that's really great to actually meet face to face. Provides a very different opportunity for introduction than like a cold email or
it's a very relationship type business. Like, I know, like, when we're at the conference, you mentioned like just like some of like the importance of relationship even after the intro, and just it's being able to trust that person and to have a true relationship with them, more than just hey, you have a cool product.
Yeah, it's like, hey, you have a cool product, plus my colleagues, plus you've worked in this industry maybe, plus you've been very diligent about researching investors or the industry itself, and you're also an domain expert in what you do, so that helps a lot.
Yeah, it's the full package for sure.
Yeah.
So like, if you look at the innovation pipeline that you have currently at Diageo, like, what are some of like the products like that are in there today that like you are so excited about?
We have a lot of exciting products. I mean, I'll do kind of comment on what my team looks at, but Diageo as a whole is super innovative, and all of the different trademark brands like Smirnoff or Captain Morgan or Crown Royal, they're always introducing cool new products and flavors and formats. So as a whole, I think Diageo is very innovative, and then my team fills the gaps of things like they may not be creating internally, or just newly launched brands that are also exciting to bring to market. So some things that my team has invested in that's really interesting are, like, for example, I mentioned Seedlip, but there's also Mr. Black, which is a cold brew liqueur.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so playing off of like espresso martini and carajillos, those type of awesome drink trends. That is quickly becoming, I think, like a go-to for people that just generally like espresso martini serves. So we invest in that. Also early stage. They were originally based in Australia, and then really kind of went to market in the US while Diageo started investing, and then grew to a place where they were large enough for Diageo to acquire. And so now they're part of the core portfolio. And then another brand, Ritual Zero Proof. It's non-alc, quite
I've heard of
different
Ritual, yeah.
from Seedlip. Seedlip is got like botanicals and fruits, and it's got like unique flavors and unique serve formats, whereas Ritual, it's very simple. It's a simple value proposition. It's 1-to-1 with alcohol. They have 5 SKUs: gin, rum, whiskey, tequila, and aperitif. And it's just, they replace those types of spirits 1-to-1. So if you wanted a margarita, you would just use Ritual tequila instead of regular tequila, and then makes a really, really great cocktail. That's really exciting too. And that's what brand we've been investing in and following on for several years. And they've become the number one non-alc spirit in the US.
That's really awesome. So now we have non-alc as this one big space here, or low alc as one of like the trends that Diageo seems to be following. What are some of the other like strategies that you're looking to put into that pipeline, like other than the non-alc piece?
Yeah, I mean, the traditional categories of spirits also, but I think we're also thinking about, because, you know, like with tequila, there are thousands of tequila brands out there, and a lot of them are starting to look a lot alike. They might have a celebrity or
You know,
influencer.
seems like they all have a celebrity now.
They might be like sustainable or additive free, or, you know, there's all, you know, made with certain type of agave. You know, there might be these sort of common traits now, actually kind of across the board, that almost become table stakes for brands. It, like, additive free isn't so unique anymore.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the standout characteristic for the brand. So what we're really looking for now is, if we're going to invest in, you know, one brand in every 100 we see, there must be something really stand out. So it could still be a tequila, it could still be another whiskey, or it could be like a spirit that we know pretty well, or understand well, but there needs to be something about it that we think is really incredible. And that could be whether, you know, it could be like an incredible growth trajectory. It could be incredible founder story or background. It could be ingredients. It could be sustainability related. There could be a number of different factors. But now, you know, this space is really competitive. The bar gets higher and higher. So we are really looking for something differentiated and innovative.
So you have like all these brands that are coming in, like, that you're investing in. Like, out of all those brands that come in, like how many actually make it into like the Diageo like lineup? Like, is there like a cutoff range there?
No, there's no cutoff. There's no hard and fast rules around. There's like not as much of a science when it comes to working with startups or investing in startups. So, and that's for any industry, in my experience. It's kind of like once you've been in this industry for a long time and you've looked at a lot of different players, it becomes easier to recognize something that could be special, because so many companies are lookalikes. So when there is something standout, you kind of can see it pretty quickly. Yeah, I mean,
All right, so you're training me. I'm new to the industry. I'm on your team now, and I need your help. Like, I can't identify like the differentiating factor for a brand. Like, what are some things that I should be looking for to say, hey, this brand is the next thing?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's sort of like the qualitative traits, and then there's the quantitative traits. Qualitatively, it's the product itself, how it's produced, the founders, management team, the talent around the team, and how well they've kind of executed operationally, and then trends wise, how well they are following like consumer and brand strategy, marketing, and then quantitatively, we look at a lot of the numbers around the volume or rate of sale, velocity, different metrics that are specific to the CPG industry, and then also general financial metrics around top line revenues and gross margins. There's unit economics on the products, the spending and overheads, and then sometimes also looking quantitatively at how much capital they have raised and what their ability to actually have executed and spent it, and what they've been able to do over the years with the ROI of the business. So, and then it has to be generally just a very exciting brand and product for us that have a lot of sort of buzz around it, because like I mentioned, it's a super competitive and saturated market these days. So we really need breakthrough brands that can surpass all of the rest.
Yeah, there's a lot of a lot of factors that go into it, and I love how you're kind of talking about the qualitative and the quantitative, and kind of even the things that are not even qualitative, but just kind of gut instinct, like it's kind of there as well, like just kind of being mindful of that, of those brands, and saying, okay, this one has it has the, I don't know, the je ne sais quoi or whatever it may be, right? So it has to have that thing. That makes a lot of sense too. Now, you mentioned before Distill Ventures, and how that sits on the outside of Diageo. Can you tell us like a little bit about your relationship with Distill Ventures? What is that like?
They're our partners and they work with us, Diageo exclusively. They are around a 30-person team, and Diageo Ventures is like a three-person team. So they're really built to help Diageo Ventures and amplify our work and really support us where we cannot be as hands-on. So they do help us end to end with our investments, and that could include sourcing, they could help us with due diligence. And then very importantly, after we invest, they're very active with our portfolio companies. And so they'll have day-to-day exposure to each startup, and each startup has like an assigned sort of go-to person that works with them, that really understands intimately what's going on with the startup, because it's within everyone's kind of long-term goal is for the startups to succeed. And so this team, Distill Ventures, is helping the startups in all kinds of areas, whether it's sales and marketing related, like financial related, press, like PR, commercial, e-commerce, consumer insights. They're helping our startups in a lot of different ways, in ways that they need. So it's not an accelerator necessarily, but it's a very bespoke programmatically that each startup gets help from Distill Ventures.
I love that approach. Like usually accelerated programs are very much like, hey, week 1, we're going to do this, week 2, we're going to do that, and we're going to build out your brand based off of this cookie cutter type of framework. And that sounds really cool, where it's like certain brands might need help with financing versus others needing help with the marketing, and being able to do that bespoke work with them. I imagine that must increase the rate of success versus traditional programs.
Yeah, it's because we're very active investors, especially with Distill Ventures help. Yeah, it does help them be on track and achieve different objectives that we all have in place together.
What are some of like the most common things that Distill Ventures is working with the startups? Like, is there like a particular thing or two that's like, yeah, you know what, they do need help with X, Y, and Z?
Yeah, it's typically around like consumer brand marketing and distribution.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty common for any startup in any industry.
Yeah. I can
Yeah.
imagine. It's like, what does Distill Venture do for them when it comes like down to the consumer piece of it? Are they going out and executing the research, or kind of just having them look at things a certain way? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's still up to the company, the startup, to do the legwork. But yeah, we'll provide a lot of the data, insights, advice around what could be like best practices or what works based on the experience of the team, as well as using data to show,
yeah,
like A/B test this channel versus that channel, um, this like customer acquisition strategy versus that customer acquisition strategy, this focus group, type of strategy. So there's a lot of just this like help and input, but ultimately it's still up to the startup to execute.
yeah. It must be like so refreshing to those startup companies when they come in. And it's like, I worked with a retailer on an accelerator program, and these are like brand new companies just starting out, and like their eyes are wide open seeing like the insights from this brand because they never had access to data like that before. So the access that of data that you have and being able to share like these use cases and just industry wide information, it's the first time they've had access to that. So it must be so eye
Yeah.
opening and refreshing for them to like,
Yeah.
finally I have
Yeah,
something to go
exactly.
on.
Yeah. And industry experts that
Mhm.
have, this isn't their first rodeo, so they're really coming in with so much knowledge base.
Yeah. Now I wanted to dig into like to some like of the challenges for Diageo, like in your team. Like, what are some like of the pitfalls and challenges of venture capital, and like how do you guys kind of navigate that space?
Yeah, um I think it's probably a more challenging time for venture than some previous years, because the model sort of ebbed and flowed a bit. Like, during COVID, there was a lot of capital flowing around. There was a lot of investment. There were a lot of companies that received a lot of cash infusion because things are going really well. And now it's a bit different. There's a drawback, drawback on how much capital is out there available to invest into startups. There's downward consumer activity or purchasing patterns in CPG or some other industries as well. So I think right now we're going through a little bit of a shift. And what that means is, yeah, it's more difficult for companies to raise capital to show the types of metrics that VCs were used to seeing just a couple of years ago. And
Mhm.
the bar is really high to find capital out there at this point, whether you're a startup raising capital to keep the lights on, or if you're a VC as well and you need to raise outside funds, also more difficult to raise outside funds for your venture fund. But it's a very cyclical industry, so things will come back. And it's an industry that kind of fixes
Yeah.
itself over time too. And the funds that don't do well, the startups that don't do well, they'll either have an exit or they'll dissolve, and it kind of resets everything into balance again. And that's
Mhm.
kind of how the industry cycle kind of works over
Yeah,
time.
I am a novice into that piece of it. I don't understand the venture capital side definitely not as well as you do. But like, would you say that it's like it kind of marries or mirrors like the economy, like where it's like right now things are high in inflation and people are really like everyone's kind of tightening the belt. Is it kind of matching that?
Yeah, it does match that, and I think it probably gets hit a little slower than
Mm,
it gets hit much slower than the public markets for sure,
yeah,
because it's considered a longer term horizon. You don't see
yeah,
startups exit for like 5 to 10 years after initial investment. So it's a long play, but they're definitely, yeah, there's the same overall economic factors that trickle down to
yeah.
us and our startups.
And how do you see like venture capital evolving? So like it's cyclical and things are going to pick back up again, but is there anything that's like, you know what, we learned this and we're going to change the way that we approach it? Like, what do you see like the future looking like?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to stay kind of patient, and we just kind of need to understand like this is a part of the cycle, but in the meantime, like really try to help our companies maintain growth, continue to do well in their businesses. So there's a lot of just sort of support definitely at this point. And then still looking for good opportunities out there, because there just actually means there are a lot more opportunities coming online for us to potentially look at, because we're still a big player in the space that brands will be drawn to and will want to receive capital from. So I think there are going to be some good opportunities for us coming up. And then also for us to keep supporting the brands that we really believe in.
Awesome, Sallie. And one final question. Really appreciate you coming on the show today and taking the time to do this. If you were to give advice to other folks in corporate positions that are looking to invest, probably haven't started doing it yet, but you know, if they're thinking about investing in these startup brands, like what's the one piece of advice that you would give them in starting a program?
I mean, there's a lot of advice
Sure.
you give them. There's a lot of pieces that go into it, but though corporate VCs that are longstanding, that have track record, that are able to sustain and maintain over time, are ones that are set up well organizationally from the get-go, meaning you've got executive support, you've got funding and budget, and you've got a commitment from the organization to really get this going. Because if you don't, it is very easy for a corporate to say, oh, well, this is just an extracurricular, and why are we doing this? And the next CEO or the next president comes in and they have a very different, potentially, perspective on why are we doing this. So to have it really established organizationally from the get-go will be very important for the group to have sustainability and have a focus, and to be able to go out there and actually activate some investments.
Sallie, that's amazing advice. And yes, there's a ton that you can give. And I think you gave the greatest advice possible. It's about the fundamentals and having a strong foundation. And like when you were talking about it, reminded me of Walmart and their store number 8, which is their incubator.
Mm-hmm.
And just how the program was cut off just recently, and all because, you know, I think the CFO that was there originally left, that was, you know, that sponsored the program. And now all of a sudden it's just not a priority anymore. So
it's common.
Yeah,
very
absolutely.
common.
Yeah, so get that buy-in and have everyone knowing why you're doing this. It's just a very interesting way to approach innovation. I think it's extremely important to have like that external, like the open innovation piece, right? Where you're looking outside the organization for innovation, because you can't do it all within. So I think it's so important to balance the two pieces out and collaborate. Innovation is all about collaboration, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Sallie, thanks so much again for being on the show today. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, and hope to see you again on the show in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
We have made it to the end of another episode. Thank you for tuning in. A couple of things before you go. If you have found value in this episode, I am sure you'll find value in what we have coming up. So please subscribe so you will have access and know when we launch the next episode. Also, leave a review. The more reviews we have, the further our reach becomes, and I truly want this to be heard by as many leaders as possible. Don't hog this all for yourself. I would love to hear your insights on this topic, so meet me on social media at Matt Mueller Innovation on LinkedIn and Instagram. And lastly, if you want to learn more about my story and what I can do for you and your company, go to themindfulinnovator.com. I would love to help you innovate on purpose. Until next time, just remember, bring a level of awareness to each conversation, each observation, each moment, and you can create great change in this world. Thank you.